Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Bright Lights podcast. I am one of your two co-hosts, Cody Roskins. Alongside me is my good friend and partner, Brayton Tuma. Brayton, go ahead and say hello to our fine listeners, or I guess first-time listeners, as this is our inaugural episode.
Hey guys, I am Brayton Tuma, and I'm very happy to be working with Cody, who is also a longtime friend, a classmate, and former teammate as well in some sports. And I'm very excited to get to work with him and bring Southwest Iowa the spotlight that it deserves for all of its sports. So,
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, of course. This is our first episode, so we've got a lot of stuff to dive into today, so let's get right into it. We're going to be a very soccer-heavy episode, I guess, today is how you could say it, Tuma. A lot of other sports going on. We've mentioned track and golf off the air, but those will be future episodes. We had a lot of cancellations this last week in the Southwest Iowa area, and so we're going to try and wait for a day or two where there's more events in a row and we can talk about more variety of teams. But without further ado, Tuma, let's go ahead and jump right on into the Western Iowa Conference, a conference that you and I called home during our high school days when we were graduates or students at HSTW. And so it was kind of a weird start for the WIC and the girls' side of things. Logan Magnolia played the first game of the season. They opened up play against Nottoway Valley. They lost a close one, 2-1. They then traveled to HSTW and won 4-0. Hodgson leads the team with 1 goal with stats before the game of HSTW's input on Varsity Bound. So Brayton, the Western Iowa Conference kind of viewed as a two-team race between Trainer and Tri-Center. Trainer won the season. I think they went undefeated in the conference last season. I believe they went 6-0. Tri-Center was right behind them with a loss in the regional, but this could be a really interesting conference. Logan Magnolia's got a really solid junior class coming up. How do we kind of see this shaping out?
Cody, I'm so glad you asked me this question because I love soccer. For those of you who don't know me very well, Cody understands this. I'm a soccer nut when it comes to it, so I'm very happy this question was asked. I actually am very excited to see how this conference turns out because you can never count Trainer out. However, I am very excited to see how this Logan Magnolia girls team turns out. Just because you're right, they are I wouldn't call them a young class of girls because they do have experience, but is it enough experience to go to Trainer and win? That's a big thing because Trainer's a tough place to play. It's a more regulation sized field, so sometimes players are thrown off. In personal experience, it was the first time I had played on what was close to a regulation-sized field. The dimensions are bigger. There's more running involved. So can you keep up with the speed of the game when the game is now on a bigger playing field? And I mean that in a literal sense. So in aspects like that, I'm very interested to see how it goes. Now, I am still very confident that this younger Logan Magnolia team is going to be able to do that. I actually, just looking at stats, looking at some huddle highlights here and there, finding clips, I'm actually excited to see this matchup, and I think it'll be a good one, and I honestly do think that the purple and gold are going to give the Cardinals a run for their money.
That absolutely could be the case. And just going of some of the press clippings I've been written about the WIC for the girls' side of things, Logan Magnolia last season went 2-14. They went 1-5 in the Western Iowa Conference, but they do return basically all their scoring from a season ago. This year's juniors for Logan scored all 13 of their goals a season ago. Jada Cohn put in 10 to lead the team, and Notling also chipped in some as well. And then Abby Leonard, who's also in the junior class, was in between the pipes this season. She went in for 525 minutes last season. So she's going to be a big force. And this junior class is going to necessarily won't be a sprint is how you would describe the season, but it'll be a marathon build for them. I feel like you're really going to see their best ball being played in the latter end of the season. But like we said, this is a WIC that's going to be kind of wide open from third on down. Everyone's kind of predicting Trainer and Tri-Center to either split the season series or split the conference race.
No, yeah. And I mean, going back to what I said, Logan, very young team. I do think they're going to see improvement. So, but my pick, I will actually say this. My pick for the WIC right here.
Okay, we like that.
I'm taking Tri-Center. I'm jumping on the train right now. And here's why. Tri-Center has a list of experienced girls that have been there before. They have college experience there that has played, and you learn from people you play under. So this is a team that has girls that have gone on to the next level to play. and those girls that have played under them have learned from them and so on. Not only that, but the coaching there is it's very well kept. So they play a very good style of soccer. It's very fluent, and the basics and all the fundamentals are down. And that is how they win games late. I saw it last year throughout the time we were in high school. That's how they did it throughout tournaments, throughout playoffs. I mean, postseason play. They when it matters most, Tri Center is able to go back to their fundamentals and they are able to win games. So my pick, it's a close one. I'm predicting like a 3 point, like something where it's going to come down to like the final week of like it's going to, like you said, it's going to be a marathon. It's going to be the final week where those last 2 or 3 games are going to play a very critical role between Tri Center and between Trainer. Then that is exactly why I'm going back to Tri Center, and that's why I'm saying Tri Center. And again, this is a preseason prediction. We haven't seen what these teams can do. Both of them could surprise us, or we could have a dark horse come out and surprise us. But if I had to pick right now, I'm going to jump on the Tri Center train just due to the fact of fundamentals and past experience.
And it's not a bad pick either, Tim. I mean, they returned Marissa and Miranda Ring, two of the best players that have ever played in Southwest Iowa. I think they've combined for just about 60 goals and about 40 assists in their time, which is remarkable. And just going up and down the list, it's kind of just shaping up to be a Trainer Tri-Center matchup. But there are other teams in the WIC. Of course, we already kind of touched on Tri-Center. They came into the season ranked sixth in Class 1A. Trainer was ranked 7th in Class 1A. But there's also one more team in the WIC, Tuma, that was ranked into the top 15. And surprisingly enough, Tuma, it was Underwood. The 8-8 Underwood Eagles come into this season ranked 15th in Class 1A. And they're got a puncher's chance at punching a ticket into one of those top 2 slots.
And once again, this is a great thing to bring up because Underwood to me is I love the coaching there, both on the boys and women's side, the men and women's side of the sport. Their coaching, their fundamentals are fairly good. I do some weaknesses here and there that they could work on. But I'm interested to see how the girls' attack develops. That is going to be a big decider in this because when you look at the WIC, Tri-Center, Trainer, I'm interested to see how Logan does with their younger talent and all that goal scoring. But even when you talk about them, Logan's in that mix. And those three really, and then you throw Underwood in there, it's an offensive powerhouse conference. I mean, they're heavy on the goal scoring, and a lot of times it just kind of reminds you of games where it's like, okay, who's going to score more? And I understand that's the basis of the game, but I mean, it's like, hey, we're gonna come out, we're gonna throw punches here and there, and who's gonna be the one that doesn't throw the counter? So I'm actually interested to see how Underwood is going to play into this. I think they could mix the deck up really well because I've seen very, very good glimpses from previous years coming back and watching games. I think their fundamentals are good enough to where they're going to be able to last the long run and make this thing interesting. And even with that, I'm still going to go with Tri-Center at the top, but I'm glad you brought this up. For second place, I honestly think that the Eagles have a chance to really mix the deck up, and I think they max out at 2 because I just don't know if they have the power to go to Tri-Center and win. However, I could see something in tournament play where they really show us flashes of what they can be, and I'm excited to see how this gets mixed up. And once again, these are all preseason predictions. We haven't seen a lot yet. There's been a couple of games in here and there, but both me and Cody are excited to see how this turns out because it's been a lot of back and forth and prediction. So, I mean.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we were kind of robbed of that opportunity to see how Underwood and Tri-Center would match up with the poor turf cancellation, I believe was the reasoning they put out on Twitter. So that game was postponed and will be played. I think it's either the 12th or the 13th that game is rescheduled for the ladies. But the final team that was in action was HSTW, and of course we touched on them with Logan Magnolia. Really don't know what to make of the the Lady Vikes just yet. Madison Ekman's their leading goal scorer returning. Bella Canada will be back in between goal. It's a team that won 3 games last year. They split with Missouri Valley in the conference. They went 2-4 in conference play, and so it's just kind of it's a really young team. You really don't know what you have for talent yet because they've been kind of top heavy for so long. And so now we're kind of seeing a glimpse of that younger talent. And I guess it's kind of time to put their feet to the fire, so to speak. But we'll go ahead and jump on now. We're going to stay in the WIC, Tuma, but we're going to go ahead and jump over to the boys' side of things for the boys' soccer. And there were some eye-opener games in the WIC on the boys' side of things in this opening week.
Very, very much. I'm ecstatic to see this season because to me, the conference is an absolute toss-up. I can't name one team that I actually favor in this conference, and that's what makes these races so fun. I mean, you're going to see teams where they might go win 3-1 one week, and then they're going to go lose 2-0 the next week to a team that is one level below them, and they're just going to be constantly climbing and dropping in this conference. And it's the most fun race to watch when you're talking about these conference games. One team that I actually really want people to watch out for, they've done an outstanding job in climbing and staying where they need to be, especially I brushed on it a little bit earlier when we talked about the girls, but it's Underwood. They have great fundamentals. The coaching is very well, and I'm looking to see if they're going to keep that up. They've always been a really tough, gritty team. You know, they win it late. They play very well late. They're very well conditioned, and that's a big thing when you're talking about some of these games. Some of them that I've experienced, you know, you get into these 1-1, 2-2, or 2-1 games where you're down. Do you have the heart to continue to play? And to me, I've never questioned it with this Underwood team. I mean, some of the guys that were freshmen and sophomores back when I was playing, these guys are leaders now, and they were playing when I was there as a senior. So that shows a lot. These guys are there to play, and they're ready, and I think they're ready to take this team to that next level and keep climbing. So I'm really excited to see this Eagles team. You can never count Trainer out just because even if they're favored, even if
They're the gold
not,
standard.
they're the gold standard. They have even when they're not favored, they become a dark horse and they knock teams off. That is what they do. They are a very lethal team, especially at home. That home field advantage at Trainer, it's unrivaled. So.
Yeah, and just going off of what the conference shaped up like last year, running down 1 through 6, it was Trainer, Riverside, Underwood, Missouri Valley, AHSGW, Logan, Magnolia, and then Tri-Center rounded it out at 6. But this year's kind of unique in the fact that Trainer and Riverside, again, when we were in high school, Riverside was kind of starting to build the foundation to try and make an attempt to run up and be more competitive in athletics. Now they're kind of there. They only lost one game in the conference last year, and they're coming off a really good win on the road at a Hawkeye 10 team in Atlantic, who is going to be playing in their own gauntlet of a conference. But those two team races will be very interesting to watch. And then the middle of the pack does Underwood, kind of stay where they're supposed to be in that third or second slot? Does Missouri Valley or HSTW have a big bounce back year? HSTW was fresh off an 8-1 win against Logan Magnolia, in which Rayton Groby had a hat trick. And also, does Tri-Center try and find a way to, kind of get out of the cellar dweller role from what they were a year ago? Granted, it was a abbreviated season. It was, everybody was dealing with all sorts of stuff, but it was a really interesting conference race, and we'll be keen to see how it shapes up. Just your kind of final thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for asking me, Cody. Like I said, it's going to be a really big mix-up. This is going to be a marathon. And I know I touched on, Trainer and Underwood. The Cardinals and the Eagles, they have their kind of identity. Underwood is very tough, gritty. They're gonna take you to the wire. They don't care if you're number 1 in the state. They don't care if you're number 2, 3, 4. They don't care where you're ranked at. They will come to your house and they will play you down to the wire. They are just a tough, gritty team, and they know how to get it done. Trainer, like we already touched on, gold standard there. They're always going to be, even on their lower seasons, they're going to be in that top 3 mix, which is, they've earned that right. They have earned that right. I am interested to see how this Avoca attack develops, because right now it's kind of a spearhead where you only have that one point of attack. Granted, Rayton is doing very well. I actually really like how Rayton has developed. We see a lot of speed, a lot of length in that stride from him, which is very hard to keep up with. Not only that, but the kid's got a leg. He can shoot. So even when he is not running running away from you and just taking it for that one-on-one run with the keeper, he's dangerous from outside the 18. So I'm interested to see if, as the season goes on and you start to play and key on Groby, who's going to step up to become that, second acting force that Raiden can hand it off to and trust that, hey, I trust him with this shot, because that's going to be a big deal. You need 1, 2, 3 really good goal scorers. You can't have a spearhead at the end of this. So I'm interested to see how that goes. And Riverside, I got one word for that. It's speed. They strike fast, strike first, and they let you know when they do. I really like this team. One thing that I do think this team needs to work on is actually pacing their game, because they strike, they're very fast. If they can hit fast and then control the game, I think they would actually see bigger marginal wins. But they strike so fast and try to play the game at one speed, they start to tire out. And when they tire out, the defense kind of starts to get a little shaky, and that's how they let in these counterattacks. I think they use that speed attack, but when they're on defense, it's all the sprinting. You just slow it down, play the game at the pace it needs to be played. Soccer is not a all-out sprint 24/7. When you have the ball, it's not even all-out 24/7 sprint, even with the ball. This is it's a situational. When do I sprint? When do I know how to sprint and where to go? It's going to be a big thing, but I do actually like Riverside, Trainer, and Underwood in this top 3 mix, and I'm interested to see how it shakes out. And if Avoca can develop that attack, I wouldn't mind tossing them into that top 3, 2, 2, 3 mix. I wouldn't say 1. I don't know if they're going to have the absolute the numbers, frankly, just to say that, because they are a little low on that substitute side, as we both kind of seen when we look at that roster, which can get kind of a little shaky when you look at injuries, fatigue throughout the season, substitutes. But yeah, final thoughts. I'm probably going to take Trainer, Underwood, and Riverside in my top 3. Honestly, that's not in order, just anywhere. And I think my dark horse is probably going to be Avoca. So after that, I'm probably going to look for Tri-Center to establish themselves. Like you said, they need to get just pick it up. Like they're a good team. I see it. You see flashes, but that's the problem right now. It's a flash in a pan, and then it's over. They need to start the fire. And once they do, I think you'll see a brand new team, and it's a team that can be scary. So we'll look for all of these, and these are, preseason predictions, but we'll check in every week just to see how this is going. So I'm excited for WIC Boys soccer this year. So
yeah, just a quick couple wrap up as we finish up the WIC. Bentley finished with 2 goals against Atlantic. Trainer's opening season game, they went on the road and beat Harlan Community in overtime in Harlan at Merrill Field. They trailed almost the entirety of that game before scratching lacrosse in the final minutes, and then scored in the first 4 minutes of golden goal in overtime. But we had one cancellation, of course, and that was Underwood and Tri-Center. As we shift now gears, we're going to the bigger schools. Hawkeye 10 time. This is where the big meat of Southwest Iowa soccer comes from. And we're going to start first with, again, it's kind of the trainer of the Hawkeye 10, the Lewis Central Titans. They opened up their season at home against Indianola. They had a 3-0 victory, and then they played Sioux City East yesterday and won 2-1. Colton Costello, Boston Hensley, and Jonah Church are all tied with 1 goal this season, while Gage Tripp leads the team with 2 assists, and they will take on Denison Schleswig on the 4th. But you got to like what you see so far from the Titans.
Oh, absolutely. And there's only one thing to describe this team. They are literal Titans, okay? It's hard to go into Council Bluffs and win. That stadium is an amazing stadium. I played on it. It's a great place to play. It's, almost regulation size. Not only that, but this is a great team, and it's very well coached. Year in and year out, they find a way to, as they let players go, they teach their new players coming in. And it's a great system that I've seen, and it works. That is the most important part. It works, and they've proven it. State champions, I think it was 3 years ago.
It would have been 2019, I believe.
Yep, 2019, the year that 2019. So, I mean, they've proven it. They have that right. They've been state champions. Understandably, most of those kids have moved on. This is the time for those younger guys that were on that team to step up and say, hey, we can do this again. And I think they can. It's going to take a lot because, it's a tough conference to play in, a lot of bigger schools, and it's a very physical conference. I will say that this is not your flashy soccer. This is, hey, when you get the ball, you have somebody on you immediately. I mean, you're on your hip 24/7. Lots of bodies hitting the ground, and can you not just last the game, but last the season? How do you treat injuries, bruises, bumps, nicks, and everything like that? But Hawkeye 10, yeah, I'm gonna favor Lewis Central a little bit just because you know they've proven that they can go the distance. So they're a favorite right now. But some teams that you can mix in there, Atlantic, a little bit of a dark horse. I know they struggle here and there, but I think if they find the pieces and keep them together, they've shown flashes of what they can do, but they need to keep them molded together. That's the problem with them. If they do, I actually do like them. I like their athletes, but we'll see. As we know, they actually lost to Riverside 3-2. Just a WIC conference opponent they lost to, which actually, when we talk about that, the WIC conference teams, that's another thing that had made the WIC conference a little scarier is some of the Hawkeye 10 conferences that they had played, like teams that they had played, they were beating. So, I'm actually excited to see how this goes. Atlantic figured themselves out. St. Albert's is always a really well-coached team. They have fundamentals. They have all the basics down, and it's really fun to watch them. I know that they defeated Kemper with that 10-0 win.
Yeah, with the major decision.
It was a good game played by St. Albert's. Like I said, very fundamentally strong, and they showed it. They showed it with force, and that's the big thing. So we can't count them out because I understand in this conference they are probably one of the smaller schools, but they make up for that in fundamentals and in talent. So it may be a smaller roster, but they have a very talented roster, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. And especially against Lewis Central, some school with a bigger roster. I'm actually really excited for that game. That'd be a game that I'd love to make it back and watch and give a actual report of what I saw in person. I think it's going to be a great game. I think this conference is going to be fairly open, but I'm gonna think that Lewis Central is gonna establish themselves as a head, like just that front runner very early, and then towards the middle of the season, we're gonna see somebody try to ride this out and be like, hey, we're gonna come get you, we're gonna chase you. So, and then we got the other mix. We got Denison, Glenwood, and the rest of them. So it's gonna be interesting. I really like this conference, and I think it's an underrated conference because these have some talented teams. So
absolutely the case. Like you said, again, just touching on it, St. Albert's was a 10-0 victor over Kemper Catholic. Harlan Community played HSCW in an open season scrimmage, but then lost a heartbreaker to Trainer in overtime. Creston, they actually had a game postponed. They were scheduled to play Collins Maxwell. That game got postponed to a later date, and then they played Denison Schleswig in a 10-0 loss. They played St. Albert's on the 4th. Atlantic, like we said, they played Riverside. They lost that game 3-2. Jashawn Segura and Tristan Matheson each with 1 goal on the season. They will play a Western Iowa Conference school, Missouri Valley, on the 4th. Glenwood, they had 2 open season scrimmages before regular season play. Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah. They played Abraham Lincoln and then Underwood. Then they played Sergeant Bluff Luton, and they beat them 6-1. Caden Johnson and Adam Servant both with 2 goals on the season. McLuhan, Slaughter, and Clark each with 1 assist, and they will play Harlan Community on 4th. But that game will be at Creighton, fun fact. And then, of course, Denison Schleswig, they played Sioux City East, and they lost that game 3-0. And then Creston, in which they won 5-1. Alcaraz and Gonzalez and Cerveria, all with 2 goals on the season. And Magna leads the team with 14 saves between the pipes, and they take on the LC Titans on the 4th. So, like we said, a really tight race so far, a lot of different results. Not really sure what to make of the Hawkeye 10 yet. We know coming in that some of the mainstay coaches will be a lot of fun to watch with their teams. Todd Tarbox from St. Albert's will be good. James Driver, of course, from Lewis Central, and just everybody else up and down the list, all with high-quality teams. But like you said, not everybody can finish 500. Just mathematically, someone's got to finish lower. As we jump now into the girls' side of things with the Hawkeye 10. This was, again, kind of an interesting thing because a lot of these games either got postponed or they were rescheduled to play yesterday, or they've played really early in the week, so we haven't seen them in action for a couple of days. So we'll go ahead and start off first with Denison Schleswig. They opened the season up against Kemper Catholic. to an interconference scrimmage, but they won that scrimmage 1-0, and then they beat Creston 10-0, and they traveled to play Lewis Central on the 4th in that varsity boys girls doubleheader. And Pauline I'm going to say this name hopefully right. Beaza leads the team with 4 goals and 3 assists. Again, if we have pronounced anybody's name wrong, please let us know. We apologize in advance. But she's leading the team statistically. She's kind of spearheading that offense for Denison. And, of course, for Glenwood, they're ranked 14th in the state in Class 2A. And this was one of the big matchups we had on our Twitter feed for Spotlight Sports. Currently ranked 14th in Class 2A. They took on Tri-Center, who, again, we said was ranked 6th in Class 1A, and they played each other to overtime, in which the Glenwood Rams were able to defeat Tri-Center 2-1. That game, of course, coming after Glenwood beat Sioux City West 3-1. Daughtery leads the team with 2 goals. Molly Williams leads the team with 2 assists. Will play Harlan on the 4th. So a lot of the 4th, we're going to have a lot of games to watch out for coming up. And, of course, just going down the list, we saw St. Albert's with a 5-0 loss to AL, who we'll talk about in just a little bit. They finished up 9-10 last year, 5-2 in conference play. And then Creston kind of got the bad end of the stick, like we said. They've had a couple games, having a chance to go play Harlan. That game got canceled, and then they lost to Denison/Schleswig 10-0. So give me your take on the girls real quick.
This girls' conference is, once again, it's going to be a toss-up I'm thinking, 3 through the bottom. I really like the way that Lewis Central has kind of established themselves very early. It's going to be a good one, but I'm jumping on this train right now. This isn't just a conference prediction. I love the way these girls play. They play the game very fluently, and stay with me, Cody. You're gonna think
I'm serious. I'm strapped in.
You're gonna think I'm crazy, but watch out for the AL girls. I am telling you, this is a favorite. They play together. They are one unit, and they move very fluently.
Did you say AL?
AL.
Abraham Lincoln's not in the Hawkeye 10, you silly goose.
Wait, what? Oh, that's right.
AL's in the Missouri River Conference. Come on.
Oh no.
Got you there, didn't I?
You did.
No, I think I know what you were picking up, though. Going up and down the line, LC finished last season first in the conference. They were followed up by Glenwood. Those were the kind of the weird teams, right? They were pretty much running away with the conference. Glenwood was the only team out of those two with a loss in the conference. But then St. Albert's, who finished 9-10, but 5-2 in the Hawkeye 10, finishes third, followed up by Atlantic, Kemper Catholic, Harlan Community, Denison/Schleswig, Creston. It was kind of a weird conference from about 4 on up, and then it was pretty chalk from about 4 on down. So I'm just not really sure what to make of it so far, Tuma. We kind of figure LC and St. Albert's are going to be back at the top again just because they're historic powers. They are very strong tradition.
Very much.
But
Very much.
Could this be Glenwood's year? Could this be the year that Glenwood goes and defeats St. Albert's, defeats Lewis Central, and they get back to the top of the Hawkeye 10 in the girls?
I will say this. I think they split with both, and I think that this is going to be a toss-up to where can they? So I think that fully they can defeat these two teams, and not only that, but I think that they can outlast the rest of the season. My thing with them is can they win these other smaller games and not, they're not going to lose air in the tires. They're not going to slow down, because that's going to be the big thing is can we split a series with both of these two teams? Not only that, but can we sweep the rest of these? Because that's what these other two are going to do. You already know. These two teams are powerhouses, and I'm not guaranteeing sweeps from all of them because soccer is a crazy game and, a goal here and a goal there, and all of a sudden number one goes down. But these are two confident teams that are up at the top, and Glenwood's looking to throw themselves in the mix and say, hey, we're here. So I actually think they are going to throw themselves in the mix. To say number one and climb back to be top, I don't know. That's something that we're going to have to cover later. But I do think they, for sure, they're going to throw themselves into that fight and say, hey, we're here. Do not forget about us. So I'm interested to see how that goes. So yeah.
Yeah, just to wrap up the Hawkeye 10 girls real quick before we jump into our final thoughts and games we want to look forward to. The Hawkeye 10 conference for the girls has been dominated by Lewis Central. I want to credit Derek Martin from KMA for putting this stat together because I, at the time, figured it was something along these lines but didn't have the exact numbers. Lewis Central girls in the past have won the conference, have won 8 straight conference titles and 11 of the last 14 dating back to 2007. And keep in mind, Glenwood finished just a half game back at LC. And so you got to figure Lewis Central's a really tall mountain to climb. But once someone dethrones them, that's, again, the new standard.
It is. It's going to be a brand new standard, and we're going to be here for it. I think that's the best part. Is now that we're doing this, we get to track all this closer. I'm excited to see how this race goes. I think Glenwood has, they have the condition to continue that race. But like I said, it's going to be they need to split. And hopefully with one of these teams, they can find a way to best them twice. They do that, and I think this race is busted wide open, and this thing is changed completely. But it's going to depend on, can I split with these two? And like I said, can I barely split with the rest of these, but get mostly sweeps the rest of the season? And tournament play is also going to be a very big thing because it doesn't go to your regular season record, but it's a chance for us to get to see you against non-conventional opponents in different styles of play. Because generally conferences have, a similar style of play when it comes, it may not be the same formation, but I'm talking physicality wise, fluent wise, the basics of everything. We play long ball, short ball, possession, or are we going to be a quick counter team? So I think it's going to be fun to see some of these teams that we've talked about in tournaments where they're playing teams from, around the state, and it's going to get good. I think so, because to see some of our physical teams here in Southwest Iowa play some of our more, as we would call, like that beautiful style game. I mean, soccer is a beautiful game in general, but something where it's more, we're going to play possession. As you get towards that Des Moines area, a lot of teams play possession, and they play that quick, very quick game against a physical team. That it's a mismatch both ways because these teams aren't used to the physicality of Southwest Iowa. Southwest Iowa isn't used to that quick hittingness. So I'm actually excited for tournament play. I'm excited for soccer in general. It's going to be a good year this year. A lot of conferences are big toss-ups. It's going to be a lot of question marks, and it depends on health. Honestly, that's the biggest thing. It's going to be a huge factor this year. Is can I keep healthy throughout the season? Because as we know, injuries play a huge factor into what reporters think, what the team thinks, what coaches think, and game plans. So it's going to be a good one. And I think this year in general for soccer is going to be amazing. So.
And we've got just one more segment here that we're going to touch on before we head into the schedule. So I know, Brayton, you're going to cover the boys side of things starting on April 4th when we get back to action on Monday. I want to note right now that we have 2 games that we're watching right now for Spotlight Sports. Earlier today, Trainer went on the road and is playing at the Perry Varsity Tournament out of the Western Iowa Conference, and they're playing Des Moines North and Des Moines Hoover in the Perry Varsity Tournament. And that first game should have ended already, and they should have actually just about getting ready to kick off their second game against Des Moines Hoover. So as soon as this wraps up, we'll have a post about that. But of course, there was one team that wowed us that we didn't cover in the conference race. It's because they play in the Missouri River Conference, and you tried your hardest to bring them up, but it's a team that I've been a big fan on coming into the season. That's the Abraham Lincoln Lynx girls team. They came into the season ranked in the top 10 in Class 3A, but yesterday, Tuma, they went on the road at Ankeny Centennial in the jungle and escaped with a 2-1 overtime win. And today, they play the team directly above them in the Class 3A rankings in Ankeny in a shootout tournament. And that is going to be an amazing game. That game will kick off here in about a half hour, and so I'm going to have my eye on that one all day. But that's going to be my game to watch for today and probably for the next week because it's kind of hard to get 2 top 5 teams together. But, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and let you pull up your boys' schedule real quick. I'm going to go ahead and run down the girls' games that I'll be watching on April the 4th when we start back up on Monday. Right off the bat, Trainer Tri-Center, girls soccer. We touched on it already. That's going to be one of the key matchups for the Western Iowa Conference. It's going to be played at Tri-Center. Turf conditions bearing, of course. We've already seen one game for Tri-Center get postponed and canceled. Next down the list, we go down, and you see Logan Magnolia and Riverside. Again, we touched on Logan Magnolia as kind of a youth, and they're going up against Riverside, who's pretty much a pretty even analog for them, so it'll be kind of an interesting measuring stick game for both sides. And of course, we have Missouri Valley versus Underwood, another Western Iowa Conference game. And finally, towards the bottom, Harlan Community and Glenwood will square off, and so will Lewis Central and Denison Schleswig. St. Albert's also in action. Trying to pull up there. They play Creston. So a couple of Hawkeye 10 teams, a couple of Western Iowa Conference games. Not sure which ones we're going to highlight on the scoreboard just yet. I imagine we'll see a handful of those, but some really good games looking forward to. And what do you have for the boys on April the 4th?
So on April 4th, I'm kind of looking at a huge slate of games that are it's gonna get interesting around here. We're gonna see some Missouri Valley action. Missouri Valley opens up against Underwood. We're gonna kind of see what Missouri Valley has this year. They've struggled in the past, so it's gonna be kind of nice to see them. But once again, we're gonna see Underwood play, and that's a big thing. Is how's Underwood gonna do? That one's gonna be at Missouri Valley, so Underwood will be on the road. A big one for me is we're gonna see Tri-Center versus Trainer when it comes to boys action, and it's a WIC conference matchup. And I generally like this game, and here's why. It's hard not to. 100%. Tri-Center is looking for that foothold. Can they show themselves in this game? And I think this is a perfect chance to do it. Trainer's going to keep to their gold standard. They're going to play fluent soccer, and they're going to play very fundamental soccer. So can Tri-Center find a way to prove themselves in this game and show, hey, we're here. You need to throw us in the mix. And can Trainer just show what they've always done and dominate? They're going to dominate the pitch as usual. So I think that these are two games to look out for, because Missouri Valley is going to open play. Underwood's going to be showing themselves again. And Tri-Center and Trainer, that's going to be a good one to me. That's my eye watcher. I really want to keep an eye on that. And if I even had a chance to go, I would love to, because this is going to be a matchup to watch. So.
Absolutely. And then just one last day, we said we were only going to reach till the 6th on our preview games. There's only 2 games that day. 2 games on April the 6th for girls soccer. Lewis Central and St. Albert, and Underwood and Thomas Jefferson. So Southwest Iowa gets probably 2 of the better matchups you could ask for. Thomas Jefferson, one of the better 3A schools. Underwood, a really good school in their own right. Like we said, they're coming in ranked 15th in Class 1A. This will be one of those games. All right, we put you here. Let's see if we can prove it. And, of course, the Battle of Council Bluffs, one of the many battles of Council Bluffs. There's like 5 schools there, but Lewis Central and St. Albert's, 2 teams that finished in the top 3 of the Hawkeye 10 a year ago. St. Albert's just finished in 3rd. Lewis Central finished in 1st. It's going to be a really good one. St. Albert coming off that tough loss against AL, and they're having to get their season a little bit back on track, but Lewis Central's looking very stout. Tuma, I'll go ahead and let you wrap it up with your boys, and then we'll go ahead and sign off.
So boys soccer, Sioux City West is going to come down and visit Denison Schleswig, which is I think is going to be a good matchup. We kind of get to see what Denison's going to play against a different style of opponent, because the Sioux City West Conference, I believe it's the River.
Missouri River Conference.
Missouri River Conference. Missouri River Conference plays very fluent style of soccer. They play a very one-to-one connection. They're a very big possession, just as AL is. For my mistake earlier, I don't know why I did that, but
it's episode 1. People think it's
episode
funny.
1. You gotta give me some slack. All right, it's been a while. I'm old. So, but I think Sioux City West is it's going to be a decent team. They're going to be pretty good, and I think they're going to be a really good test for Denison. So to see that in action, it's going to be really nice. And then my second game it's actually for the 5th, because 6th there's not a lot of Southwest Iowa action for boys going on, so I had to take it back today. It's Charlton versus Creston, so we're going to see Creston play a different opponent and maybe try to show what they can do, which will be really nice. I know that they've been struggling as of late, and they're looking to break a pattern. I know, nobody wants to stay in that losing pattern, and I think they have a chance to do it here. Whether they're going to or not, I cannot say, because it's all about confidence and it's kind of believing that you can. So those are 2 games just to kind of look at, because they're both going to be they're not real like eye openers, but they could play a difference when it comes to records and placement in the future, because as we know, conference, if there's ties in conference, they let the out of conference play to break ties. So these are some things here and there that can play a huge thing towards the end of the season.
Absolutely could be the case, and we can't wait to see what happens here in the next week when we catch you back again. I assume we're going to record again on Saturday or Sunday and send out another weekend episode. That'll be number 2. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more track and golf to talk about, just with all the cancellations. It didn't work out that way this week. But for Cody Roskins and Brayton Tuma, thank you everybody for tuning into the first episode of the Bright Lights podcast, and we will see you next Saturday.